Yeah, that's what I look for.
I think
Oh my God.
going back to
Are those the current pictures?
Moving on.
Turn the laptop around.
All right, so, Mark, you've been an editor,
Yeah.
you've been a reporter,
Mhm.
writer,
Right.
Publisher. Webmaster, publisher, and now retailer.
Yes.
Is there a preference?
Yeah, actually, seriously, editor.
Okay.
That's my favorite job. That's what I wanted. I didn't want to be a writer growing up. I really didn't. I expected maybe I would do some writing, but it never occurred to me that I could do this on a regular basis and come up with stories every week. And so I just wanted to be an editor. That or a radio announcer. Those were my two. Seriously, those were my two that was my fallback, as a radio announcer. But I just, the fun part of being an editor is helping other people tell their stories. And what I found, especially when I was working at Boom as an editor about 6 or 7 years ago, is that by sitting down and having to articulate to a younger writer what it is I'm looking for in a story or why I think you could have made a better choice here or there, it forced me to put into words stuff that I just find that I did instinctively. And in doing so, it made me question my choices in a good way. It made me sort of examine the tools in my toolbox rather than just take them completely for granted, if that makes any sense.
So, well, in some ways, leaving DC staff when you did opened up the door to your writing career.
Yeah.
But do you regret, the actions that led up to that moment?
Yes, but yeah, the specific actions, yes. But in general, no. I mean, in general, it's worked out really well. There is, I honestly thought that was my end of career in comics when I left DC Comics, but it turned out to have been the best thing that could have happened. So, yeah. But
Do you see yourself going back to editing at some point?
I'm actually doing a little bit of that now. I'm actually doing a little side work for a video game company, and not. I know, in my spare time, and instead of writing for them, what they've sort of asked me to do is they want to do some more like internal, like digital comics and stuff like that. I said, do you care how much they cost to do? No. I said, do you care how much money they make? They said, no. I said, well, I am the expert at making digital comics that you have knowing that they're not going to make any money, so please. And so I'm working with those guys and sort of did a boot camp for about 2 weeks, right? We took them completely from start to finish about what a comic book is, how you put it together, how you create this thing. And here's Comics 101, which is, this is panels, this is pages, this is captions. Here's Comics 201, which is, here's what a story is. Here's the things you have to look out for when you do a story. Here's the stuff that makes a terrible story. The 301 is no more than 35 words in a balloon, no more than 35 words in a panel, whatever. Sort of rules of thumb. And so doing that put me in a position where now I'm on retainer with them and I'm doing editorial work with them. I'm not having to write, but I'm able to it's just, again, like I said, it's the same skill set, but you're coming at it from a completely different angle. And it's very rewarding. I like TV, think about it, everybody in the creative industry that I know of, when they get to a certain point in their career, they all say the same thing, which is, I really like teaching. And there's something about being in a position where you realize that, again, being able to pass what you learn on to other people allows you to learn this at the same time. Yeah.
Could you imagine being a showrunner for the TV?
Yeah, I can
That's the
totally
same.
do that.
That's kind of what you're describing.
Yeah, that's exactly, and I can totally do that. I mean,
Yeah.
I know how to work a room.
Yeah.
I know how to, because the first rule of working a room when you're working with different writers and that kind of stuff is it's improv, right?
Yep.
And so the rule of improv is never say no. The rule of improv is always say yes and and let other people feed off each other's ideas, and that's how I run a room. And I love doing that stuff.
Yep.
Do you know of anything? Because I got some time.
Yeah.
So, I want to throw this open to questions, but first, is there any deep, dark Mark Waid secret you're willing to share on this path?
No, so let's open it up.
He actually does have a good singing voice. When I could get him to, play rock band.
if you've not heard him sing for Laurie, you've not heard him sing for Laurie.
You've not heard anyone sing for Laurie.
He did that. And I also would like to let everybody know that he is up for Best Writer tonight. At the Hartford.
Save your applause for Brian Vaughn, please, okay? We call them the Saga Awards, okay? That's what you're saying.
Yes, but he is up for it.
Brian came on, exactly. Oh, I'm sorry.
He is up for it, and I voted for him.
You're very good.
And you also edit my book, Charlie Wormwood.
I do.
And he is an excellent editor.
Thank you.
And I appreciate it. And we collaborate okay on that sometimes.
Obviously,
The other times he sleeps in another room.
A different house.
Yeah.
Across the street.
Yeah.
Yes.
obviously I'm up here as,
That's actually true. He will sleep across the house.
yeah, I'm up here as the grit and the Vasily of this panel, obviously.
Yeah.
But, you know, Mark and I, you know, I guess we're about as two different as people can get.
Yes.
You know, I am the cynical, nasty, dark person that Mark doesn't ever be.
You're also really cheap, you say.
Yeah. And, you know, we've had our ups and downs probably more than anybody else over the years. You know. But the one thing, you know, he's thrown me out of his house when I was staying with him in New York. And, you know,
Moving on.
yeah. But, you know, whatever happens, whatever Mark does, you know, I've always said to anybody, you know, no matter how much I may disagree with you on something or whatever, you always do what you honestly believe is the right thing to do. And that kind of, you know, I'll get upset.
So
And that makes a big
right of him to
difference.
throw you out of the house?
Sorry?
Was it right of him to throw you out of the house?
Well, no, he realized it was a mistake later.
That's
He's a big enough man to
Yeah.
no.
They're still working together, so.
I see
yeah. They seriously are the odd couple.
It's true.
Yeah, but I mean, like I say, and the fact that, you know, even, you know, I would defend him even if I think he's doing the wrong thing, because I know he's doing it for the right reasons. And I have done that.
And you will continue to do that probably, so.
I've got the stitches and.
Aw.
Also, during a time when I think people are afraid to say certain things in public, Mark still has his voice, and he's very respectful, but I believe, like, even if he'll make mistakes in public, and then he'll even apologize if he's made a mistake, or if he feels something was wrong, or he learned something different. And I always find that completely refreshing, to remain in public in that way, because a lot of people just skitter away. I mean, even I sometimes wonder if I should hit enter on a comment or something, because like, am I prepared to deal with this for the next 3 days? I don't know, you know. And I always find that, like, it's very honorable. And even when you disagree, or even when Mark feels like, oh, you know what, I think I was wrong, he'll come out and say that, and I think that's really refreshing.
I'll also come out and say when you were wrong. I will. That's true.
No. Follow him on Twitter, Mark Waid, if you want to be entertained.
Or outraged, one of the two. So, yes, sir.
Actually, two questions for Mr. Wade.
Sure.
One, now that you've kind of raised the point, you're not a cynic.
Yeah.
Is it in your mind now to challenge yourself by writing a character who is a cynic?
Good question.
Work outside of yourself. And my second question, sir,
Yes.
when may I expect my near-mint Daredevil replacements?
Soon. And, you know, that's a good question. It hadn't occurred to me until now, but that's not a bad way to go, sort of working outside my comfort zone. But I don't know, that's a slippery, that's a really dark place to go for me, but that's not a bad idea.
Well, I mean, you've written characters that are African-American and you're not. You've written characters that are aliens and you're not.
But it would be nice to take that stretch, yes.
And since you brought the tears to my eye while reading Daredevil,
Aw.
I would like my collection.
I understand, okay. I will,
Sir.
yes.
First of all,
I'll leave them after you, so.
Christine from the other Murdoch papers asked me to say hello to you.
Oh, and she's awesome, great, thanks.
Secondly, this is just my own feeling, but I get the sense that there might have been more you wanted to do with Matt Murdock in San Francisco rather than ending with issue 18, and I'm just curious if that was the case.
There's a little more we could have done. There's a couple of stories that I knew I wanted to tell, we didn't get a chance to tell, but Chris Omni just said, look, I've been doing it for 3 years. I've run out of ways to draw radar sense. And I respect that wholeheartedly. I mean, this is the reason that Mike and I left Fantastic Four, because Mike just said, I've run out of Fantastic Four stories to tell, so let's go do something else, which is fine. It just, that's fine. There's no point in continuing on. I didn't want to work with it, just as I didn't want to do any more FF without Mike. I didn't want to do any more Daredevil without Chris. So that's a small sacrifice to say that, you know, there's still, I'm only a third of my way through my career. So there's still plenty of time to go back and do that. Thank you.
Fair enough.
Alien.
Yeah, Alien.
Yes, sir.
Is there any chance or plans to return to the Irredeemable universe, any of those characters, either before the Plutonian snapped or after the end of the series?
No, I guess there's always a chance. There's no plans. I mean, I have no interest in doing the irredeemable stuff before Plutonian snaps, because that's what makes them interesting to me. That's that sort of weirdly autobiographical, sort of sketchy, sort of emotionally damaged guy. That's interesting to me. After that, again, I think that story's kind of done. But I wouldn't be averse to trying to find some way to do something in that universe. But thank you for asking.
You have worked on so many characters already, but is there like a character that maybe you haven't worked on yet that you really want to write about? Could be any publisher.
I know. You know, not really. The closest answer I have, and again, not to lean on Mike too much, but Captain Marvel, DC's Captain Marvel would have been a really good one. And Mike and I had Mike Ringo and I had a pitch, and Mike did a beautiful piece, and we really wanted to do it. And with Mike gone, I don't really want to go there anymore. I mean, that might be the answer. All right, but so that I don't end on a really somber note, I've also never done a Batman story, really. I did like a one-shot Batman in Barcelona or whatever, and I've done a lot of Batman in Justice League, and I've done this and that, but I've never done like any sort of extended Batman run. That might be fun to do someday, because it's weird that that's one of the great characters in comics, and yet having done everything, and I ran out of, I stopped counting at 2,000 comics a few years ago. So I don't know, but it's funny that none of them are Batman comics.
You said that you're at the point in your career now where you can basically pick and choose your collaborators. Is there anybody coming up on your radar that you're looking towards to working with?
I met Doc Shaner a little while ago. He's doing S.H.I.E.L.D. that comes out next week, and that was my big get for the year because I love Doc Shaner stuff. There's a couple other guys, but I'm not going to tell you because you might take them from me.
What's the first comic you read that made you love comics?
There are two. There are the first one I read that it made me love comics is Batman 180. It was the first issue I got after the TV show started. This is 1966, and it was the first comic I ever read, so that counts. But there's an issue of Action Comics number 500 that there's three answers. I'm going to keep going. That comes from 500, which is the life story of Superman. And it was written by Marty Pasco, and it was drawn by Kurt Swan. And it was the first time I really got a sense that the writer was writing from the inside of the character. Like there's moments in that book that Marty is clearly writing about Superman in a very personal way. He's having Superman explain what it's like to be Superman. In a way, in not a stupid, sort of over-the-top way, but he's talking about when he was a boy and he had a dog that came from Krypton. And so that was the greatest day of his life because suddenly he wasn't alone anymore. And what it was like to have somebody fly by your side who knew what it felt like when the wind ran across your face, or knew the sound that bullets made when they bounced off living flesh. And I loved that. I still have that. I have that page. I found that page on eBay years ago. That comic, and that, as much as anything, made me love comics because you really saw for the first time how you could put yourself in these, and really dig into these characters and get an emotional core to them that before then was all plot, like clever, cool gimmick in a story or clever plot. But this is about. All right, I got one more. Give me time for one more.
Go for it.
It's my favorite Superman story of all time. I'm going to try to tell us without choking up. So. To sound ridiculous when I tell you that the story is called Superman Owes $1 billion. But the story, now I want to preface this by reminding you, Superman stories of the day were told for 8-year-old boys. I mean, there was no sophistication. It was all suspension of disbelief. It was all whimsy. The story doesn't have to make any realistic sense. But the story is about an IRS agent who realizes that because even though Superman does all his things for charity, when he makes diamonds out of coal or when he finds gold mines or it donates to orphanages and stuff, that, I'm gonna keep this off of that, that it's still taxable income. And that, and so he decides, well, yes, but Superman has done, generated billions and billions of dollars for charity, but Superman still technically owes the United States government, IRS, $1 billion in back taxes. So he calls Superman in, and Superman, who has a long, long history of trying to honor incredibly flimsy contracts, which is every third Superman story, says, all right, well, I'll try to pony up. So he spends the entire issue, like, digging down to Atlantis to find this ancient artifact, and then realizes, oh my God, the rays from the scepter can heal this weird disease and stuff, so I've got to give it over to a hospital. Or he'll go in space and he'll find these super gem minerals or whatever, and then he realizes they belong to somebody else, and just getting missed. So this is the whole story, like just, comedy of errors. Like, I've got the $1 billion, oh crap, I've got to give it away. So the end of the story is Superman shows up and says, I got nothing. And the guy's boss comes in, the IRS agent's boss comes in, and he says, it sounds stupid, but he says, this is ridiculous. Look, if you want to go by the letter of the law, by the IRS code, like, this is ridiculous. Why am I getting so, by the IRS code, everybody gets deductions for their dependents, right? Everybody's like, at that time, there was like $300 on your extension. The whole world depends on Superman. And I can't believe this is getting me. But that, as goofy as that was, like the setup to that, the punchline to that, just meant the world to me. Like, this is a character, when I was a kid, I didn't have a whole lot of like parental support and stuff, and I didn't feel like I was particularly, cared about it or whatever, but, and that's also what I saw in the Superman movie, is like, this is a character who cares about everybody. That's awesome. What a great superpower, that you can have anything and do anything, and you can take anything you wanted, and instead you use those powers to make the world a better place and to do for other people. That made me love comics as much as anything. Oh my God, this is humiliating.
It's fine. I don't know if we can be going over or not. I don't know what's in here after this. So I think that is panel next.
Mark has it now.
Oh, well, then. Screw. So I think that is the best note to close on. Mark's got a panel next door. Then he'll be at the table later. By all means, pay your respects there. Thanks for your time and attention.
I got a full battery, like, what the hell?